Hi, everybody. I want to welcome you all to our Lunch and Learn today. My name is Josh Wynn. I am the program manager for Buckeye Wellness out of the Office of the Chief Wellness Officer here at The Ohio State University. Our presentation today is called Life Simple 7 as the Avenue to Better Health. We'll be looking at self-management of health and wellness through the principles of American Heart Association's Life 7 principle metrics. Our presenter today is Dr. Tamila Nolan. She is an assistant professor and nurse scientist at The Ohio State University's College of Nursing and Comprehensive Cancer Center. Dr. Nolan studies issues in cancer control. Her community-based research program is looking at ways to improve quality of life and health among individuals from underrepresented, underdeserved populations through the development, implementation, and dissemination of targeted interventions. Without further ado, please help me welcome Dr. Tamila Nolan.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to present. And I will say that this is work from home. And so I do have a lovely 8-month-old who you may hear during this presentation, but I'm happy to really talk a little bit more about Life Simple 7. And so the reason why this is such an important issue is because we know that at birth, there are differences in life expectancy. And so in these pictures, you can see at the top is a white baby girl. That second baby girl is this one that you hear right now. That's my baby girl, Nola. Then there's a white baby boy, and then a black baby boy who actually belongs to my colleague, Dr. Joshua Joseph. And so in this graph that you can see here is plotted along the life expectancy at birth by race and sex. And so as you see here, we have white females living the longest and black males living the shortest lives. And so as we think about that difference from 1970 to 2015, that's about a 10-year difference at birth based off of race and sex. And so we definitely know that there are avenues in which we can improve some of the things that we can improve as far as being able to decrease those disparities. And so as we look at leading causes of death in Black men and women, we see it's very similar at the top being heart disease, then cancer as leading causes of death. And then on Black men's side, we have unintentional injuries or accidents. And then on Black women's side, we have strokes. And so what we know about these disease processes and also the accidents is that they're totally preventable. And so we can do things to mitigate our risk of those dying of those diseases. And so as we really look here in Columbus, we have a wonderful group at our College of Public Health, as well as the whole Ohio Department of Health, who have really done a great job of mapping vulnerability. And so by vulnerability, we mean areas that have higher poverty, areas that have lower socioeconomic status in the individuals who live in those areas. And so those areas with the highest vulnerability are marked in red and the lowest in blue. And so as you can see, the blue are mostly our suburbs. They're on the outskirts of the inner city. And then the red are, our near east side of Columbus, our Elmwood, Stambaugh area. Those are, highly red vulnerability. And so with that, we can see that where there are areas of high vulnerability, there are also large populations of Black and brown individuals who are living in those areas. Now, as we talk about vulnerability, it's important to note that this makes across Columbus area here. And it's important to note that this very same map can actually represent both cancer and diabetes, as well as cardiovascular disease. And so where we see those vulnerabilities, we see that there are also intersections of vulnerabilities. And so it's much like our major highways on those overpasses where we see that as we layer things on one another, so not only might someone be Black, they might also be a male. They might also work in a job that is about predisposing them to have exposures to hazardous materials. Maybe they live in an area that has hazardous materials in the soil. Maybe they have a lot of pollution that's around them. Even thinking about noise pollution, all of those things can compound on one another and then give us areas of higher vulnerability and then predispose us to having more chronic diseases on the outset. And so, what the National Institute of Minority Health and Health Disparities shares with us is that we need to be thinking about how we see these disparities across our populations. And so, what are the domains of influence? We know that, we can look at the biological, we can look at the behaviors, we can look at what is the physical and built environment, what is the culture of the environment, and then also our health system. But also, we have to look at the levels of influence. So I'm an individual and I'm situated in context with other individuals. So that's an interpersonal context. And then I'm situated within a community and also in a larger society. And so as we begin to do research, as we begin to actually think about ways in which we can impact health disparities, we actually have to think about broad reaching strategies that can help us, across the domains and across the levels of influence. And so as we think about this, what do heart disease, diabetes, and cancer prevention have in common? Well, if you think back to that slide that we had, it showed that the vulnerabilities, they really do overlap. And so it's for good reason. When we look at Life Simple 7, you can see that we're really interested in diet. We can see that we're really interested in weight. If you move to thinking about diabetes from the American Diabetes Association, you can see many of the same constructs that are a part of prevention. And then last but not least here, you can see the American Institute of Cancer Research. Again, very interested in diet and physical activity. And so all of these things have in common those things in which we can change, which are modifiable health behaviors that we can absolutely impact in our daily lives. And so I'm focusing this talk on American Heart Association's Life Simple 7, which I do a lot of work with my colleagues, Drs. Daryl Gray and Joshua Joseph. And so the metrics with the American Heart Association's Life Simple 7 include smoking status, cholesterol, blood pressure, body mass index, physical activity, healthy diet score, and also the glucose. And as you can see, there's a stoplight metric here between poor and ideal health. And so, what we know about the benefits of Life Simple 7 is that people who have a higher attainment of Life Simple 7, they actually have a lower risk of developing cancer, diabetes, and heart disease. Also, we know that people who meet these healthy lifestyle behaviors, they have a lower risk of dying early. And so, going back to that first slide, maybe that's something that we can make sure that we do. And last but not least, it does improve overall. It's been associated with improvement in overall health. But just like we have disparities as it relates to chronic disease, we also have disparities as it relates to the attainment of Life Simple 7 metrics, and that we see that Black people are less likely to attain higher levels of Life Simple 7. In Sanchez et al., we saw definitely that statistic, but also looking at things like the national, one of our national health surveys in Haynes, we know that typically in most of these cohort studies, this to be true of Black and Brown individuals who are less likely to meet these as compared to white individuals. And so with that being said, is it simple? Is Life Simple 7 really simple? Well, that's up for interpretation. Yes, no, maybe so. I like to think about the serenity prayer. God grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things that I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. And so, one of the things that I, talk to my participants about is really setting SMART goals. So, specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time-based goals in which they can really see where they're starting, have that goal, and then really pay attention to and fall back on what are those specifics that they can strive toward. And so we have to teach our ourselves and also those people who are in our communities about knowing their ideal numbers. And so this is a pop quiz for everybody. If we remember blood pressure, an ideal blood pressure, it should be less than 120 over 80. I have people ask me all the time, what about if it's 130? What about if it's 140? Normally I feel fine. Well, you might feel fine, but as we think about blood pressure, it should be less than 120 over 80. And we know that it correlates with better outcomes as far as cardiovascular health and others. With cholesterol, it should be less than 200. As we think about that total cholesterol, same thing. I get all the time. What about me if I have a number that's over that and I still feel fine? Well, the evidence tells us that you're less likely to have a heart attack or a stroke if you have a cholesterol that's less than 200. Glucose, a fasting glucose should be less than 100 as we look at that scale. And then for weight, the BMI should be less than 25. And so really, one of the things that we strive to impart here with our Life Simple 7 is that it's building a healthy lifestyle. It's not a fad. This is not something that you are doing in a series of just a few weeks and then going back to normal, but it's really changing those daily habits that you have. And so that's getting exercise or physical activity regularly. That's eating healthily. That's drinking plenty of water, and definitely reducing stress. And I think as we talk about mental health, that's one of the areas that we kind of leave out sometimes when we're thinking about healthy lifestyle. But we know through the American Heart Association that stress management is totally key. And so, with the American Heart Association, they have these 10 tips that they recommend to stop stress in its tracks. And I can tell you that I can more often than not find myself using that first one, counting to 10 before I speak or react. Because we do know that taking the time to count, taking the time to breathe can reduce that level of anxiety, can reduce that stress that can be a reaction to some sort of stimulus that is there. Also, as we think about, taking those moments for breathing, meditation is awesome. Whether you are meditating or you are praying, having some time to really center oneself and be mindful of where you are in life and what really matters. Those are things that we'd have excellent data on. They're showing the improvements in reducing anxiety, even reducing depression and other forms of stress. And so, as we think about that, one of the tips that I love to give people is 5 finger breathing, where you're inhaling, going up one finger, and exhaling, going down. Inhaling, going up one finger, and exhale, going down, and continuing to do that for about 4 cycles. And you really can reduce your heart rate and also just feeling a feeling of stress as you're minding your breathing. It's just amazing. But stress management is one of those things that we absolutely have to build into our everyday lives. Now, smoking is one of those things that I think has been beat into our heads. I'm from Alabama, and so one of the things that I say that you don't beat a dead horse. And so I won't belabor this slide, but I'll just say, don't smoke. Do not smoke. We know that there are tremendous issues that smoke inhalation can cause, including cancer, including increasing your risk of having high blood pressure, because inhaling those things, there's carcinogens. Inhaling those things, it makes your blood vessels constrict, and so all of that's just bad. So just don't smoke. As we think about physical activity or exercise, the American Heart Association recommends that you get about 150 minutes of moderate aerobic activity per week. And so by moderate, we mean an activity that's going to cause you to get your heart rate up. And if you're thinking about your comfort level, you should be, kind of out of breath when you're doing this activity. You should be able to speak, but it should be a little bit difficult for you. Now, for those who are thinking about, vigorous activity, maybe you said, all right, well, I like the brisk walk thing for moderate activity, but I think I can do a little bit more. I think I can jog or I can run. So that's actually considered to be vigorous activity. And so for vigorous activity, it's recommended that you get about 75 minutes of that type of activity per week. And so, as we kind of think about that, those are your minimum. Those are the minimum goals that you should set for yourself. But we do know from the data is that if you the more activity minutes that you get, the better off you're probably going to be as far as your quality of life, and also as far as whether or not you might be predisposed to developing things like cancer, heart disease, and diabetes. But along with those activity minutes, I encourage folks to also add 2 days of strength training. It's important to build up those muscles, and the more that you build up those muscles, the better equipped you are to keep on with that activity. And so American Heart Association tells us to, schedule these exercise breaks, these physical activity breaks into your day, and trying to get at least 30 minutes of activity 5 minutes a week. And so this is something that you can do, take a break from your work from home schedule, get out and get some fresh air. It's wonderful weather outside. Setting those smart goals and being realistic with those goals. So if you're one of those individuals who has been, sitting for quite some time in this COVID era, and you're ready to get back out there because you've gotten both of your vaccines and you're wearing your mask. If you are one of those individuals, start slow. Start by walking. If you like swimming and you just like to get in the pool and get some weight off of your knees, that's a wonderful activity. But whatever it is that you do, keep going, and then also make sure that you're getting your walking in. So we recommend that you get about 10,000 steps per day. But if you're not at 10,000 steps, start from where you are and then continue to keep going. Another big section is the diet. And so we see this as one of the ways in which we can impact our health, and one of the crucial things that we can do as far as what are we doing every single day. And so the American Heart Association recommends that we watch our calories. And so, based off of your height and weight, what is your resting metabolic rate, and how many calories should you be getting to maintain weight, or if you were like to lose weight, decreasing about 3,500 calories per week from that basal rate. We encourage cooking at home. We encourage you to look for the heart check on the boxes of foods that you are buying. And then also, I'll talk a little bit more about this in a bit, about learning the salty sticks, because we really want to reduce the salt in our diets. And so the components of a healthy diet are fivefold. We'll talk about fish, we'll talk about sodium, fiber, fruits and vegetables, and sugar sweetened beverages. Now let's start with fish. So with fish, we're supposed to get about 2 to 3 servings of non-fried fish every single week. And so not just on Friday, but it can be any day that you're eating your fish. And the typical servings that we see are about 3.5 ounces. And so that's just a little bit smaller than a deck of cards. And that's probably a little bit, if you're looking at your hand, just the main portion of your hand there. Some really good fatty fish to kind of consider include salmon, tuna, mackerel, sardines, and anchovies, swordfish, and also Chilean sea bass. Those are some of the most common fish that we see here in the Ohio area that you can choose from, and but great sources of omega fatty acids. And so as we think about the benefits of fish, we know that consuming enough fish and fish oil decreases our risk of dying from heart attacks. And we also know that these fish oils are actually the good cholesterol. So the HDLs are that good cholesterol that helps us to make sure that we're not forming those clots. It's kind of our cleaner, if you will, that really inhibits those plaques from forming, and for decreasing again the risk of having a heart attack. And so fatty fish is definitely something to put on your radar. And if you're not a fan of eating fish, there's tons of supplements that you can add to get those omega 3 fatty acids. But I always recommend that if you're doing supplements, just to make sure that you check with your care provider, and make sure that they are abreast of all the things that you're taking, including those over the counter. Importantly, with the diet is to reduce the amount of salt that we intake per day. The maximum sodium or salt that we should have per day is about 24 milligrams, or 1 teaspoon of salt. And so that's a really small amount of salt if you really think about it. And unfortunately, in our American diet, we have a lot of preservatives, and a lot of times those preservatives actually include salt. And so American Heart Association has listed the salty six, where we have pretty high concentrations of salt in some of our foods that we buy at our grocery stores. And so those include bread, cold cuts or processed meats, pizza, sandwiches, burritos and tacos, and soup. And so those are the salty six. And as we think about where we land with those, it's kind of it's kind of a little bit difficult to know, or to really see that the salt is high in those particular foods. Things start to taste good, and you're like, oh my goodness, you look at that label, what in the world? But we know that sodium is highest in foods that are made outside of the home. And so that's why it's recommended that you eat at home, and then you know how much salt that you have included into those meals that you're preparing. And so this is a can of Campbell soup. And as we look at the dietary makeup of this particular can of soup, we can see a couple of things. First of all, the serving size is a half a cup, right? And so it also says that there are about 2.5 cups in there. And so a lot of people don't really pay attention to how many servings are in each of the cans, or each of the bags that they're consuming. But it's really important, because as we think about a person who might eat a whole can of soup, and that's 2.5 servings. We already see that the sodium here is about 890 milligrams. So that's 37% of how much sodium we're supposed to have in that day. And so if we're eating a whole can, so 37% times 2.5, so we're almost meeting our daily sodium limit just by that one can, or that one meal. And so it's important, again, to read labels and to see where there's hidden salt, but also to really look at those serving sizes so you can appropriately calculate. And that's again why soup is on the list for American Heart Association Salty Six. Next is fiber. So as we think about fiber is huge. Fiber, we are supposed to get about 25 grams of fiber per day. And of course, these are found in whole grains. And in this picture here to the right, you can see that we have different kinds of rice. And so we have white rice and brown rice on those two. And you can see that the brown rice actually still has the hull on it. And so that hull is really indigestible materials. And so it acts as like a toothbrush to your colon. And so it's really good at keeping you regular. And then also, we just again need that fiber in our diets, because if we eat enough fiber, we can actually lower our cholesterol. And so, as you can see on a lot of our cereal boxes, there's usually a whole wheat. They're touting, oh, this is whole wheat. That just means that it still has the hull on it. And so other plant foods would also have this option. But yeah, brown rice, black rice, those are better options than, the white rice, because you get the fiber within them. And also looking at your breads and your cereals that you're eating, and really striving to do the whole wheat, and so that you get the fiber in there. And so this is just an example of whole wheat versus regular. And so this, as we go back to our previous thinking about looking at what are our serving sizes, we see the serving size here is about 5 crackers. And in 5 crackers for this whole wheat, you get about 1 gram of a little less than 1 gram of your fiber per day. And I don't know anybody who eats 5 crackers, but you're probably getting 1 to 2 or even 30 grams of fiber by eating some of that whole wheat. And then in comparison, on the other side, you have just the regular Ritz crackers, and it doesn't have any dietary fiber. And so just getting in a habit of looking at your labels to help you make a better decision about, how you're going to structure your meals throughout the day to meet your requirements. Next is fruits and vegetables. So we're expected to get about 2 cups of fruits per day and 2.5 cups of vegetables per day. And so that's a relatively small amount if you kind of think about it. And how we really try to tell people is like fresh is best. And then if you can't get fresh, then go to frozen. And if you can't get frozen, go to canned. And then as so on and so forth, going down to dried. And you can actually juice vegetables as well. But I do caution people, if you are one of those folks who just loves juicing, a lot of times that you're juicing, you're getting rid of that fiber. And so more so than doing the juice, it's better for you to do smoothies. And so you get the whole fruit or vegetable in there. And so as you're thinking about getting those 2 cups of fruit or 2.5 cups of vegetables, smoothies are a wonderful option. And the benefits of those whole fruits, again, like I said, is fiber. And then if you're doing the rainbow, you're getting tons of vitamins. So from A, C, K, E, they all have wonderful aspects of improving your health, including the addition of phytochemicals being in a lot of our fruits, especially if we think about our blueberries. Those dark purples have tremendous antioxidants in there that are actually going to fight against any free radicals and reduce, if you think about the oxidative stress on and rust, that's kind of like in your body, so we don't have the rust and the oxidation if we're eating those antioxidants. So it's good for your health. Eat your fruits and vegetables. Next, we have our sugar sweetened beverages. And so one of the things about sugar sweetened beverages is that we talked about the salty six, but as we talk about drinks, you can have a tremendous amount of sugar hidden into one drink. And so a lot of the beverages that you might consume have added sugars, whether that be sugar, whether that be honey, agave, all of those things are adding sweetener to it. And so that's things like coffee or tea, that soda that's not diet, sports drink, and also juices. And so it can be really, really sneaky calories. Looking at this, the back of a Coke can. And so we see that we can get from 1 can of Coke, 12 ounces, 140 calories. And then looking at that sugar, total sugar, 39 grams. 39 grams of sugar. And I mean, that's just a tremendous amount of sugar that's added into that one drink. And so, as we think about those sugary sweetened beverages, we should really be limiting ourselves to about 100 and 150 calories per day. And so that's 1 can of Coke per day that you could splurge on. But again, we really try to um, advise folks to stay away from those sugar sweetened beverages. And then if you are going to drink a beverage, you can do 100% juice drink. And newsflash for that, you have to be really careful in reading the labels when you see that 100% juice drink, because sometimes you look on the back and it says that and they'll say from concentrate. And so you just want to make sure that what you have is no sugar added. So making sure that you can kind of look for that on your label. Labels are huge. Labels are absolutely huge. So, in summary about the diet, eating 2 to 3 servings of fish per week, or finding some other way to get your omega-3 fatty acids in. Limiting your sodium to about 24 milligrams per day. And if you can, don't add any salt at all. Eating 25 grams of fiber per day. Also eating 4.5 cups of fruits and vegetables per day. And again, limiting sugar sweetened beverages to less than 150 calories per day. And so I will provide for you all something from my colleague, Dr. Amaris Williams at the College of Medicine. She put together a sample meal. And so she recommends a sesame and maple glazed salmon, cinnamon soaked wheat berry salad, and glazed carrot salad. And so I'll provide those recipes for you. And then also these recipes came out of these books from Chef Bryant Terry and Chef Diala Canelo. And so I hope that you guys will enjoy that. But it's a way for you to kind of start thinking about getting in those recommended dietary servings per day, and also doing it in a way that is healthy and still tastes good. And I just want to say that, as we think about these Life Simple 7, one of the research projects that I have with Drs. Daryl Gray and also Joshua Joseph is that we had a project called Black Impact, where we had African American men who were identified at the National African American Male Wellness Agency's walk with having low attainment of Life Simple 7. So for us, that was less than 4 ideal metrics. And so we paired these men with health coaches and also a community health worker, and put them in teams of 10 to really look at how we could improve their engagement with primary care. Also have the social support from us, as well as the team members that they were with. And they got a community-based lifestyle intervention in which we did 45 minutes of education and 45 minutes of physical activity. And then we also provided them with information about clinical trials. And you can see that all along the way, we were supported by wonderful partners who provided in-kind support, including passes to our Columbus Parks and Recs. We had each of the men get tennis shoes, so they had some nice shoes to be walking in or doing whatever physical activity they were doing. And then also some fitness bands so that they could do things at home, because of course, at one point we had to shut down because of COVID. But long story short, what we found with these men is through this support and through this intervention, we were actually able to decrease meaningfully and significantly decrease their blood pressures, their cholesterol, and all manners of these men. They actually came back and said, "Oh, we're getting off of medication." So it was a wonderful response. And so we are hoping to help others know their numbers. And with that, knowing their numbers, we are going to be out at a global church event at Friendship Missionary Baptist Church on May 1st. And so at this event, we will have the opportunity for folks to get their Life Simple 7 numbers noted, and then also to provide them with information much like we have given here today. And so, in addition to that, we will have the COVID-19 vaccines available. So I invite you out and to share this information at cancer.osu.edu/global church. And then last but not least, I would like to acknowledge my team members. This is definitely a labor of love, and the whole community comes together. And so that is both from the PI side to our program managers, to our students who help us to make these things possible. And definitely our partners in providing some of these services, like the Charms, our College of Nursing, College of Medicine, the Wexner Medical Center, the American Cancer Society, and the list goes goes on and on and on. But it's just it's a wonderful feeling to be able to really impart information to our community and to be able to share the good news about Life Simple 7. And so I really thank you for the opportunity. I hope that the information provided has been helpful and giving you a nice structured view of Life Simple 7 and how you can incorporate that into your life. Thank you so much, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. Back to you, Josh.
Thank you, Dr. Nolan. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. If you have any questions for Dr. Nolan and her staff, please reach out to buckeyewellness@osu.edu. And also, if you're looking for any other health and wellness, healthy lifestyle behaviors here at The Ohio State University, check out our website, buckeyewellness.osu.edu.